Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Good to see y'all. It's Friday. Yeah, just a matter of perspective. It could be the beginning of someone's week and the end of someone's week. Who knows? But hey, I'm glad you're here. Just speaking favor over all of you. Thank you, moderators. And thank you for the rest of you for being part of the discovery and the journey. And what a journey it is. Yes, indeed. Um, yeah, I got here just a little bit early, didn't I? Time traveling, baby. I'm time traveling. So yeah, just had some Frank Sinatra going on. Back in the day, I lived in St. Louis, and there was a guy on KMOX radio named Jack Carney. And back in the day, I was this was in the mid 70s, right? Mid halfway through. And I was in the construction trades. I was a union drywall finisher. Any case, I did mostly commercial work. And I had the opportunity to always listen to the radio, in this case, listening to Jack Carney. And Jack was a master of the art of radio. And guess I learned a little something from him. And Jack Carney, wherever you are, my friend, still thinking about you. So anyway, little memory lane there, as they would say. So anyway, hope you're having a good Friday. Hello, Infinite Frequencies. So good to see you. And Jewel, hello. Cowboys and panel, good to see you. Hey, Susie Q. Baby, I love you. By the way, a little memory on that one. When I saw Creedence Clearwater Revival, man, that had to be 1971. Yeah. What a concert. Saw him with Bo Diddley. And if any of you have ever seen either CCR or Bo Diddley, you know when the two as a touring act, yeah, it was incredible. And John Fogerty, oh man, I can still hear Born on the Bayou. You know how he comes in with that do 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 do, and that riff is legendary. So there we go, talking about music. Yes, that's just the way it was. And I didn't even tell you I was tripping on window pane, and it was so far out every time seeing Bo Diddley because he had this square guitar. Oh, it's wild, man. Anyway, that's not what I came in here to talk about. But hey, we let the spirit flow as it goes, as John Candy used to say. And yeah. So on with our topic, and we've got a good one here, folks. I have sent out over 100 the PDFs of this story. It's a fascinating story. It's not that big of a read, but it's dynamis. I'll just say that. It is definitely dynamis. And if any of you who know Greek, you know what dynamis means. It's explosive. And hello, Jenny. Thank you. Those of you who listen to me over in the Artist First, thank you. Yeah, I think we're going to do that here in one of our weekly shows. The zombie apocalypse. It's here. We have a plan for it. Although they say, zombies are, fictional. By the time you read that damn thing, you get going, oh, no, wait a minute. Could be, and the thing about it is, it's like I was showing on the show last night. You start reading the definitions as to what they classify zombie as. Yeah, it's here. They're here. Even by the wildest stretch of the imagination on the liberal interpretation of what that document said. And I don't care what anyone says. It says they're here. And yeah. Anyway, we'll do a story on that one. So I digress again. But you know what? Let me pull up something here. Give me 1 second, folks, as he pulls up this here thing. It's all right. I'm driving the bus and I'm making sure it's all legal. So, a bit of interesting news, and I do this only for discussion's sake because whatever sake do we have to discuss anyway? That's my point. So, the galactic sheet. Any of you who follow Ben Davidson over on Suspicious Observers, if you don't, you should go over and subscribe to him. And yet, that's one person. Lynn and I met Ben when he came through Denver a number of years ago, when he was not as popular as he is now. And it has been an amazing adventure of knowledge. But here's the thing, folks, it's here. This galactic sheet, it's here. We know where it is now in proportional to where our solar system is. And folks, here's the news. I'm going to get out of here. It's here. There's no doubt about it anymore. I mean, I think I even heard Ben say this morning, it's probably affecting our solar system, the leading edge of it. And the thing that we're seeing with this, as this sheet continues to travel through the spirals of the Milky Way, and we're learning more and more about our galaxy, it has an effect on the stars, has an effect on the planets. And with Earth right now, with its magnetic shield weakening and getting more and more weak, with it on the move, all the indicators are that these are the type of things, if they meet up at the timing, it begins to present a potential cataclysm. And isn't it odd, folks? Connect the dots here with me. Y'all are some of the smartest people I know. And as I wrote, I was up this morning. Many of you got the documents I was sending out at 4:00 this morning. But the thing was, I was sitting about 3:40 this morning, and I'm connecting the dots here. So, is it possible that time is not linear, but is fluid? That time within itself, although defined as a dimension, could be multidimensional within itself, i.e., being able to be prophetic, being able to foresee events, not just past, but present and also future. I say yes. And we're going to be reading today some this is a fascinating document, 55 pages, but all those of you who've read it, it freaking blows your mind. Too many similarities, too many things that the facts back the background. And here's the thing, folks. You've got literally 5 billion people out there, maybe more, that believe their holy books actually happened. Now, they all can't be happening at the same time, or what's going on. But the point is, so when we see something like this, and this is very recent, and when you read this thing, you walk away going, all right, my mind's blown now. So what do we do from here, Ollie? And Ollie says back, well, we continue on. I had someone write me from overseas and sent me a letter. This has been a little while back, and it's very strange. It came, I won't say where the country was, but And so I opened the letter, and it simply says, "You're being watched." I hand it over to my wife, and she says, "Well, I hope they're taking good pictures." So, uh, who knows? I mean, it's not like, you know, I'll be candid with you. It doesn't require a rocket scientist to figure this out. The breadcrumbs are becoming loaves of bread. The problem is you've got to figure out where you start putting all the bread at. Um, Well, how about that? Talk about synchronicities. There's an affirmation of it. I just saw that rolling by. Someone said there was a show on television last night dealing with this as well. So, hello, Hadley. How are you doing? Much love to you, Sarah. Good to see you, and Stellar Core, and all the rest. I'm glad you're here. So, let me stop talking because we're going to do the whole thing on this thing. This is just one freaking, well, we're going to go forward to it. I keep on thinking, folks, those of you who've got the document and you've read it, don't you think about sometimes just almost the antithesis of King Og, the Raphaim, the Nephilim? Yeah. These dimensions in this hall, this is the projection hall. The picture I showed you is a damn good artist rendition of what the description of what this room looks like. So pay attention to the graphic slide I made for this. It's there, man. I mean, look at this. So get this in your head, and let's get on with the reading here. Different signs of an unknown writing that looked like an ancient arrow-headed characters were cut three-dimensionally into the thickness of the tabletop. So as you know, we left off, he was in the room, the guy who is giving the narrative to this. And after there's still diplomatic wrangling going on, I went back and did a little checking. There was a hell of a lot of State Department activity. This is no nonsense. This is, and the interesting thing was that it happened under the Bush administration and transcended over into the Obama administration by the biggest portion of this. Interesting, folks. Anyway. There was only one such line of signs on each table's width. Now, understand these tables, folks, are in many cases 3 meters high. Do the math. To convert meters into standard is 39 inches. 3 feet, keep a third. By the time you get like 10 meters, then you just multiply the 3 inches and you get what exactly the height is. So these suckers here are about 10 feet plus high. Interesting. The writing was complicated, but it also contained general symbols like triangles and circles. Although the signs were not painted, they would still be noticeable due to a slight luminous radiation, differently colored for each table. There were 5 tables on each side of the room. On some of them, I could see different objects of unknown use. They look like technical tools for scientific use. Several white translucent wires descended from many of them, gathering in rectangle boxes situated outside the table and on the ground. The boxes were made of a shiny silver metal that could not be scratched. I tried to move one of them, but it was too well anchored to the ground. The delicate cables were extremely flexible and light, and inside you could see small, bright light impulses that would slide along their whole length. 2 of the tables were empty, covered by a thin layer of orange dust. Caesar told me that they drew samples from it and that it had been sent for preliminary analysis to the lab inside the base, but they had not received any results. But the real surprise was the distinct element that made the research team give the name projection room. to the huge mountain room. When I passed by a table, a holographic projection presenting aspects from a certain scientific domain was simultaneously activated on its surface. The three dimensions colored images were perfect, very big, almost 2.5 meters high. Wow, think about that, 7 feet. Because the tables were tall, I could not see where the source of the hologram projections was. I found out from Caesar that the rectangle surface of the smooth stone tables had a tight opening in the middle that was several centimeters long and parallel to the longest side of the table. The holographic projections appeared from there. The technology used was great, said Caesar. The projections appear by themselves, but at the same time, they are interactive and depend on the one who watches them and touches the surface of the table. I went to a table that had some three-legged steps brought by the base teams, and I went up a couple of the steps until my body was above the table. It was almost 5 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. It was covered by a film made of a glass-like material, which was not transparent, but dark. I could see my head and my body reflecting as in a mirror on the surface of that shiny, dark blue, smoky film. The film was split into several big squares, marked by straight horizontal and vertical lines that form a kind of a frame. The rays that formed the hologram went out from the central slot in a perfectly coherent beam. Apparently, its domain was biology, as images of plants and animals scrolled in front of my eyes, some of them being totally unknown to me. I slightly touched one of the squares, which was the biggest, and the hologram began presenting an anatomical structure of the human body. Actually, I soon realized it was my body because of a certain mark I had on my arm. Although I was not moving, I saw the holographic images of certain areas of my body spinning continuously and being presented from different angles. If I lifted the finger off the square, the images of the plants and animals would disappear. If I moved the finger inside the square, the images would read inside of my body, thus offering the projection of my internal organs, according to my finger's position on the surface and square. I noticed that moving the finger in certain ways magnified the examined areas. Think about if we had this technology today, folks, there would be no sickness. And here's why. My amazement was boundless as I zoomed in extremely tiny dimensions, passing over individual cells, their nucleus, and reaching the molecule area. I thought I was dreaming, but I really saw a molecule that was part of my own liver and was shown in a huge dimension. In a few moments, I had gone way beyond even the most dared dreams of modern-day scientists. The image presented a kind of cloud of energy that changed its color continuously, probably because the energetic changes that took place in real time. But in its different points, I noticed a kind of condensation, linked by a kind of bridge that vibrated continuously. I thought that maybe those were the molecule chains. When I zoomed into the nuclear area, the image caught one of the atoms, but it became unstable and blocked. I then saw what I thought to be an atom as a vague energy mist with a very small, bright center, heart. Amazed, I touched other squares. Each time I touched one, the square lit in orange and signs of the unknown writing appeared inside of it. Fascinated, I went over several squares, watching the incredible projections of life on other celestial bodies. I noticed that if I simultaneously touched two surfaces of two different squares, the holographic image would render a very complex scientific analysis, presenting the DNA molecules of those beings and the compatibility possibilities between them. The image were accompanied by a sideways vertical line of that strange writing, which was probably observations, comments, or indications regarding the analysis made. These were dynamic and presented in a series as the possible phrases of mixing the two life forms. In the end, the most probable mutant form appeared as a combination of genetic data. Mutant. Remember that word. I went down the stairs shaking. My mind refused to think coherently. Strange thoughts appeared in my mind, like I was being set up or everything was a dream. Realizing what was happening to me, Caesar gradually calmed down on my paranoid tendencies that had been triggered by the very strong shock I had felt as a result of the advanced technology I had accessed in a very short period of time. After a couple of minutes, I recovered. Did you ever see the movie, Paul? Remember when he put the mind meld on him? Yeah, you get the whole universe, boom, your mind is blown. I had access in such a short period of time. After a couple of minutes, I recovered. You can spend years here without getting bored, I exclaimed. I almost cannot believe they reached such an advanced technological level. Who are they? You must know. When Caesar answered, he was very serious. No matter how weird it would seem to you, we have had no clue up to this moment. It is as if they wanted to leave us this invaluable treasure, but did not want us to know who they were. The only aspect we can suspect is that they were probably very tall. We cannot otherwise explain the gigantic dimensions of some objects in here. You can be proud, though, that you have been the first to thoroughly investigate the biology table for the last 50,000 years. I was impressed by the crossing method. It is interesting as our researchers have not found the method of simultaneously touching two squares yet. It is also true that we had to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. In the end, there have been 5 or 6 days since we got into this room and only 3 days of actual studying. We went further. On each side of the room, halfway, there were 5 huge tables situated 7 meters away from the energy shield. I passed over each quickly as Caesar told me my presence there was limited. Besides, the fact that I was there was the result of a really special request of General Obadiah that even Caesar could not have made. There were 5 Romanians and 3 Americans in the projection room. The 3 giant tunnels from behind the room were each guarded by a pair of soldiers, while 2 officers secured the overall surveillance of the room. The instructions is that they do not touch or move anything when they're alone, Caesar explained to me. All right, but what are they protecting here? Better said, from whom? This is protocol. In addition, as I told you, there are some elements I cannot tell you, but they are linked to these secured measures. I continued my rapid investigations over each table. There were projections from the physics, cosmology, astronomy, architecture, technology, religion, and a domain representing the characteristics of several races of intelligent beings that did not look entirely human. I quickly understood the information was so vast that many groups of researchers needed several years to study it continuously without fear of finishing it. Everything seemed to be a great library of the universe, brilliantly synthesized by an enigmatic civilization that was extremely advanced technically and spiritually. I then went towards the center of the room where a 2.5 meter high kind of platform stood. There were 5 steps to ease the access to its surface. The whole building was made of the same material that could be found in the big gallery. I climbed up the stairs towards with Caesar, and we reached a device that looked like a shielded circular cabin that was made of a transparent material. It was 3.5 meters high and 1.5 meters wide. Actually, it was half of a cylinder with several complicated installations inside. A kind of platform bulged out from its wall a third of the way up. From the base, and some metal wires with sensors at the end were placed even higher. We have come to the conclusion that this represents a mental emission installation, said Caesar, a possible thought amplifier or true mind machine. It is clearly structured according to the dimensions of its builders. The metal sensors you see higher up would fit perfectly on the head of a 3.5 meter high man that sits down on the platform. 12 feet, folks. Yeah. Oh, we're going to find it gets stranger. Anyway, unfortunately, I have not had the possibility of understanding how it works yet. Certain adaptations must be made, but several American transportation vehicles will arrive soon that carry the latest technology and teams of specialists who can begin to systematically research the whole place. Do you know the purpose they use this for? I asked with great interest. I think it was very important since it is inside the middle of the room. It is true, but we cannot know its true use yet. It is likely that the person who connected to these sensors inside of the cylinder was capable of controlling great mental energies and conducting them correspondingly, but it is impossible for me to be sure of the target of those energies for now. We got off the platform and went further on, leaving the stage behind. At about 15 meters away on the same central line, I saw what could be called a control panel. It was not very big, but was square with a side about 1 meter and was sustained by one central leg coming up out of the floor. So you can almost see this like a kiosk. I could not see very well what was on top of it as it was pretty high. Like all the other objects in the room, it was a little bit above my head. Utilizing another three-legged stairway, I went up a couple of the steps. I was amazed by the way things had been put together. It was very complicated, leaving the impression of a projection network of computer plaques. What we call buttons were represented by differently colored geometrical symbols. I noted mostly triangles, squares, and spirals. Two parallel slots were situated in the middle of the panel. Coming out of the slots were two 20-centimeter long metallic levers that could be compared to two handles. They were both in the down position at the base of the slots, and it was clear that they could slide up and down. Have any of you ever seen a mixing board in a recording studio? This is kind of what they're describing, folks. Just kind of give you a point of reference here. What really caught my eye was a big square placed on the right side of the board towards the bottom corner. A red button, always the red button, represented by a circle and much bigger than the rest of the signs on the board, was placed in the middle with a diameter of about 10 centimeters. The so-called button was surrounded by a series of complicated signs that seemed to be part of the same unknown writing. It was the only area on the board that contained such a sign. Caesar, who was watching me from downstairs, asked me to avoid touching anything on the board. Don't touch that, especially the red button. Don't touch the red button. But he did suggest passing the palm of my hand over the square containing the circle. I did what he asked me right away, and a huge holographic image appeared in front of me. It was about 2 meters away from the board and represented the Earth, viewed from about 25 kilometers away in the atmosphere. I was touched when I recognized the Carpathian mountain chain and its specific curve, but I was surprised to notice a flow of huge quantities of water towards plains and fields until eventually the ground became clear. Then the projection of the silver square with the big red button on it overlapped the holographic image. The button blinked alternatively while the signals on the side changed fast with varying colors. I saw how big streams of water, like giant rivers, appeared from everywhere inside the territory that now includes the entirety of Romania, a big part of Hungary and Ukraine, falling towards the mountains of the Transylvania platform. The image then zoomed in, and I saw how, in a brief period of time, the whole of Romania became particularly a new sea from which you could only see some mountains, tops, or small pieces of lands as islands. In that moment, the projection of the red button square settled on the image of the hologram without blinking. Immediately after that, the projection of the two central slots with handles from the board appeared on the left, the handle sliding down slowly. I was simultaneously watching how waters started to back out from the territory of our country. Strangely, they went south towards the point only, and that I located somewhere in the Rosette Mountains, mostly probably in, I think that is the Gandua Mountains area. The whole quantity of water drained into the ground there, and Romania's territory looked dry again with the geographical formations we know today. Still, in the curving areas of the Carpathians and at a certain distance from them towards the east, in the territory known today as Varencia, I noticed a dark area of about 30 kilometers, but could not understand what it represented. In addition, the Danube Delta did not exist anymore. And also, instead of the Black Sea, a huge platform lay towards the Middle East. In that moment, the holographic image disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. Astonished, I looked at Caesar. They even left us an instruction booklet, didn't they? He said, laughing. The procedure is similar for all the other buttons and commands on the board. But I particularly wanted you to see what could happen when the red button was touched. Apparently, however, there is a security system. The research team has identified a series of 3 complicated steps that need to be completed on the control deck so that the pressing of the red button produces the flood and the disaster you briefly watched. The way they teach us is very practical, easy, and intuitive. We suspect these devices maintain in a way that is totally unknown to us so far the essential energetic balance of the tectonic area of Romania. You have just seen the disaster that can happen if this equilibrium is affected. You know, we had a lot of people from Romania that listen to us. Hello, folks. Awfully glad to have you here. Oh, love the tea. Astounded, I noted. We then went further and towards the end of the room. There, I saw some tall metallic devices placed on the side of the room behind the T-shaped tables. They looked like antennas, as there were different metallic branches with complicated shapes emerging laterally from them. Caesar told me that nobody was aware of the use of those giant devices. We reached a very big square that was boarded by the floor material and was about 10 meters away from the control desk. The side of the square measured 3 meters and its almost smooth surface was golden yellow. In the middle, there was a small dome about 15 centimeters high with a slot on top. A vessel like an ancient amorpha, and you know that's just a vase, about half a meter high, was in front of the dome. The content of the amphora, represents one of the strong points of the discovery, Caesar told me. Personally, I think this is what the venerable Mazzini wanted so much for him and the Masonic elite. The amphora had neither patterns nor inscriptions. It was made of a special reddish metal and did not have handles. The elegant lid did not allow the contents to be seen. Caesar lifted it, and then, bending forward, I could see a very fine, white, glowing dust inside. Curiously, the interior walls were discreetly lit by a blue light that emphasized almost magical flashes of the white dust. A sample of it was analyzed, explained Caesar. The American researchers were puzzled to discover that it represents an unknown crystalline structure of monatomic gold. This is a derivative of gold, which is bright white, and the atoms are placed in a two-dimensional network as opposed to common gold, which is yellow and has atoms placed in a three-dimensional network. The monatomic gold dust is very different to obtain, especially in very large purity, as it's described in some ancient texts and a few genuine alchemy references from the Middle East. Particularly practically speaking, modern science has not been able to obtain the extraordinarily pure monatomic gold dust. Even so, incredible therapeutic effects, especially regarding regenerative capacities, have been noticed on living tissues. That is why there are still a few sources of information concerning the technology for obtaining the monatomic gold. An American scientist told me that NASA is very interested in that, and huge sums of money have been invested into researching it. I had never heard about monatomic gold up until that moment, and its use was not very clear to me. But why are some persons so interested in this dust? I asked. Did you tell Signor Mazzini about the existence of the gold dust? The Venerable One knew about it before entering here. I don't know how and from where the Masonic elite had such sources of information, but they surely heard about it before its discovery. I myself wondered why Signor Mazzini was so interested in getting it. I talked with both of our scientists and the American ones who seemed to know something about it. Now just get this, keep that in your mind, folks. So get you an idea where he's at. These are the tables that they're talking about. This is the central part of the platform that had the red button on it, right? You can see that here. This is where they found the monatomic gold. All right, so they told me that in its pure form, it strongly stimulated certain energetic flows and exchanges at the cellular level, and particularly at the neural one. In other words, it produces a much accelerated rejuvenation process. They said that theoretically, one could live in the same physical body for thousands of years if one consumed a well-determined quantity of the dust periodically. Now, folks, you've been with me, and I have shown you a couple of weeks about this very point. Anyway, let's continue. It is mind-blowing and almost unbelievable for the condition and mentality of the present individual, but this explains many energetical aspects in humankind's history, aspects about the incredible longevity of some important figures. It is also clarifies the hidden intentions of the Masonic elite. They want to live forever. Surprisingly, my tongue failed me. I was sticking fast and waiting for further explanations from Caesar. Modern technology does not allow us to obtain the purity of the monatomic gold dust, which is needed to start the general energetic process of rejuvenating the body. Furthermore, the lab results of the samples have shown that the gold atoms lay in a flat network. but are also combined with the atoms of another element which is unknown on Earth. This complicates the situation even more, as we cannot know what other characteristics the dust has besides the ones mentioned in the ancient text that the researchers totally ignored. Of course so. Caesar told me that to step on the surface of the square in front of the little dome over its middle. If you think something can further impress you, this will be one of the greatest surprises you can have in this room, he joked. I then witnessed a huge hologram with moving elements projected from the slot of the dome. I quickly understood these projections were main aspects of the extremely ancient past of humanity. Although it was a brief rendition of our ancient past, it included information concerning the hidden origins of mankind. I clearly realized the mistake of Darwin's theory of evolution. Its fundamental error was not the enforced idea, but the ignorance. Precise elements happened on Earth so long ago, elements that I saw rendered in an exceptionally intelligent and profoundly intuitive synthesis. My legs sank under me with emotion, and I kneeled as I watched the true images of the most important events in man's history, including its real origin, which creates so many disputes this day. Unfortunately, it's always unfortunately, isn't it? I was not allowed to write in this book certain essential aspects of our planet's past that I had watched in a compact version. These events were rendered exactly the way they happened tens of hundreds of thousands of years before. This was the condition Caesar asked me to keep in order to respect the terms of the top secret mutual agreement between Romania and the United States. I honestly confess that, according to my judgment, nearly 90% of all what is officially known today on the history of humankind is fake and fabricated. It is truly unbelievable that what is considered to have really happened is mostly a lie. On the other hand, the myths and legends that fill the storybooks, considered by most people to be a product of bubbly imagination, are almost true in many respects. This strange inversion has caused many problems and disputes between people throughout time. The majority of archaeologists and researchers' ideas of suppositions are wrong, even though various proofs are sometimes so obvious that they should change their misled opinions. Some of their fantasies, such as the hilarious theory of the dinosaurs' disappearance 65 million years ago, or considering that the old continents of Atlantis and Lemuria are myth, are now completely shattered because I saw very clearly then and there how things really happened. But for many researchers, it is probably more comfortable to soundly sleep instead of accepting the challenge of an unknown and admitting their limits. Okay. Cheers. From time to time, the holographic projection held the image of the event when an important moment in time was reached. In the background, the map of the sky could be seen, and the positions of the main stars and constellations of that time were marked. Caesar explained that the stars proved to be very simple methods of historical determination. All that the savants needed to do was then overlap their projections, the positions of those stars, on their actual ones, and thus ascertain the periods of time when those events actually happen. Well, that's very intuitive. The problem was that the time periods covered by the hologram was huge, several hundreds of thousands of years. The Earth's precession cycle of 25,920 years brings the constellations in their relative position to our planet to the same spot at a period of time that are in multiples of 26,000 years each. The key was to follow the holographic projections from beginning to end and then calculate how many Platonic years of approximately 26,000 years each are thus marked out. For example, we could draw the conclusion that the construction of the Bajiji Mountain was built about 50 to 55,000 years ago because the image of the Great Gallery and the main room was projected. And all the objects inside, we found them having on the background the position of the constellations towards the earth. After that, the image appeared one more time as a guide representing the passing of two precession periods of the equinox. You know, there's teaching on these precessions. There is, as I'm learning now, it completely flips realities. I mean, I think The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings was a good example of that. Different Earths, different beings. The lessons were easy and yet extremely upsetting due to their content. I saw the truth about the Egyptian civilization and the way the big Egyptian structures were built. The truth that it is totally different from the stupidities claimed today by Egyptologists. I saw what really happened during the Big Flood, as well as the germs of the human civilizations that followed it. Germs. Interesting term. Germs. That followed it and how they later populated Europe, Asia, and Africa. I have not been allowed to discuss these aspects yet, as they imply realities much too shocking for the ideas and knowledge of the contemporary man. At first, I thought that the holographic projection would show only the past of humankind, starting from its origins until the moment that the construction of the Bajiji Mountain was made. Then I saw the projections presenting the main historical aspects of the evolution of different races on our planets up to the 5th century. That meant either that the giants who built the whole structure inside the mountain were good masters of accessing the time glitches, or, and this situation looks more probable due to the huge period of time covered by the holographic projection, they mysteriously updated the source of the holographic information. Apparently, the last such update took place around 500 AD. No one knew. However, the reason why the historical information stopped at that time. Weird. I saw in a dramatic course of images the life of Jesus and his crucifixion, denied by some even nowadays. I have to say that a lot of amazing things happened then, things that are much more astonishing than what the Gospels present. Now, you see, here's a dichotomy. This guy is saying what is written in the New Testament barely ain't what happened. But what did happen? There is some who believe, and this is my opinion here, I'm inserting in here, is that the crucifixion was a galactic event, not human, not just Earth. There was something much bigger taking place. And what he says he saw here backs that up. The projections also revealed many of the persons who attended the crucifixion of Jesus on the hill, people who were not from that time, but who came there from other historical periods. Those human beings who had the same clothes as the Jewish present there had totally different features. And that was the reason why they were hiding their faces under the flow of the clothes. Who knows? The hologram also succinctly presented the lives and spiritual missions of certain exceptional persons who truly proved to possess amazing divine gifts. These persons were from the ancient past. I thus saw the deeds of great spiritual reformers from 18 to 20,000 years ago that we know nothing of. Back then, the social system and the distribution of people on the whole planet was totally different to what we know today. Archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians should strongly reconsider their ideas and conceptions about those times. There were so many elements that I witnessed that they were presented in such a compact manner that I surely would require hundreds of pages to give an approximate description. Still, the holographic projections lasted an hour and a half only. The two officers who were protecting the room and the 6 soldiers who were standing at the entrances of the tunnel were all astonished as they watched the images, even as if it was the first time that they had watched them. Another hologram disappeared, and I remained still, staring. Later, Caesar told me it was time to go to the base, as my access time to the projection room had reached its limit. I looked straight ahead. The giant and almost scary entrances of the 3 enigmatic tunnels in the mountain wall were the only areas left to explore beyond the square I was still standing on. They were about 20 meters away. In front of each of them, about 6 or 8 meters away, other control desks could be seen. They were similar to the ones placed in the middle of the hall, but smaller than that. I asked Caesar, what was the extraordinary mystery behind these 3 tunnels? He explained that he could not reveal too much concerning this aspect. What he did tell me was that what they found out about the giant mountain tunnels was due to some holographic projections from each tunnel control desk. The only aspect he could reveal was that there were 3 tunnels were heading towards 3 different areas on Earth for thousands of kilometers. The left one connected to Egypt in a secret place under the sand. This was next to Cairo on the Giza Plateau and was located between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. It has not been discovered yet. The right one connects to a similar structure inside a mountain placed on the Tibetan Plateau. This one was smaller, though not so complex. Secondary ramifications of the latter tunnel led towards an area under Buzu, close to the Carpathian Curve, and then towards a subterranean assembly in Iraq that is close to Baghdad. The latter also had a secondary ramification that led to the Gobi Plateau in Mongolia. According to what Caesar told me, the 3rd tunnel, the one placed in the middle of the projection room, represents a worldwide secret that the U.S. wanted to keep strictly for itself. At that moment, neither Caesar nor General Abadia knew any new elements of the Romanian-American discussion. It was, however, obvious that the exchange was advantageous for both sides. Knowing the Masons' terrible political influence and Senior Mancini's relation with the political structures of the 2 countries, we could suspect that there would be a gradual attempt to take over the control of the base by factors that were exterior to the interest of our government. Caesar told me that there are very important persons in our political and administrative system who, quite fortunately, know about the abominable practices of the Masons and are strongly opposed to their influence, especially with regards to taking over the great discovery in the Buji Mountains. He then told me that the central tunnel leads towards the interior and even beyond the crust of the earth, but would not give further details. Caesar noticed that the holographic images corresponding to the giant courier from inside the mountain were almost unbelievable, but at the same time, they offered a possible answer to the origins of the structure we were in and for those who built it. Before leaving the room, Caesar told me that very secret and intense preparations for certain expeditions were on their way. First, through the tunnel towards Egypt, then towards Tibet, and finally, the big expedition inside of the earth via the middle tunnel. Yeah, I marked those because there's too many coincidences that I know of. As a direct result of the bilateral Romanian-American discussions, it was decided to form a team of the best 16 men, 6 Americans, 10 Romanians. The leadership was assigned to Caesar, who was thus advanced to the rank of colonel. He explained that the rank was important, especially in regard to the team's psychology context. The departure would be at the end of September 2003, as the preparations for the expedition were complex. Caesar did not tell me anything about what was in those tunnels, but their structure was different from that of the Great Gallery. He did not tell me anything about the way they would move through the tunnels, taking into consideration the fact that thousands of kilometers were to be traveled. Finally, and unfortunately, he did not give me any details about the holographic images that corresponded to every destination target. Even so, I still consider that the elements presented here can lead us to think deep and to be prepared for the times to come. I have purposely and obviously omitted certain specific data that can lead to identifying the mountain area where the big discovery was made. A few years after my visit to that place, I still will vividly recall the overwhelming impressions I had during those several hours when I was in the surreal environment created by the secret construction inside the Busi Mountains. Time's ancient mystery and the wisdom of those who managed to control it hang over that place, patiently waiting for tens of millenniums to be to the moment when we will find out the truth. And we'll pick up on Wednesday on the rest of this. And I'll just tell you, yeah, this just blows, and when we start getting into the epilogue, it starts connecting all the dots. And the guy lays out, he says, go do your research. Here, I'm going to show you how you do it. So, and there is a race of beings, apparently. I've read the book. I've read the documents, a short reads, 55 pages, that they know something. And I don't know. Well, thank you, Lori. You got to admit, this is just some far out stuff, man. I mean, and it reads so fluently. And we're going to find out, folks. I'll give you a little sneak peek to Monday. Do you want to know how long they've been gone? I'm in the chat room. I can see you guys, folks, right now. Do you want to know how long the expedition has been going on? Folks, from what I read of the book, we're talking potentially 6, 7, 8 years here. I think I'm right on that. An expedition down into the planet that took well over 5+ years, and I want to make sure on this because it's important, but they've done the expedition, or they're still doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's a long ways down, right? Who knows what they have found? So anyway, thank you, Susie Q. Hey, Kat, how you doing? And Deborah, good to see you. But yeah, 2013. Thank you. I think that is correct. Yeah. So they've been down there a while. It's been the book I did last year on Endorphia, which is Aphrodite spelled backwards, is the story about the man who started it all. And this was a story that there's an entrance in the Kentucky area, particularly up in the kind of north west part of the state, which is very cavernous. They got Mammoth Caves are there, but there is, and I don't even think they found the end to Mammoth Caves. I don't think they have yet. But the story goes that there is an entrance that leads, right down there. So anyway, fascinating story, isn't it? You got to admit, it's a good way to spend the day. Doesn't offend anybody. It doesn't make anybody upset. It's just a good read. I love it. Well, thank you, Infinite Frequencies. Hello there, Karen. How are you doing? You would know, yeah, Queen of Quartz. Got to get you back on here. Probably would know that, and it may be the biggest thing that they have not wanted surface dwellers to know about. I'm just reading this as they go by. Well, Josh, love to hear it. Email me. Thank you, Little Evan. So, hey, just get ready for Monday, folks. Far out stuff. I mean, it just seems like there is a coalescing taking place of events, of timing. I don't know how long it's going to take for this galactic sheet for us to get fully enveloped into it, but it's becoming more and more. I think, I can tell you that the stars have changed. The position of our planet has changed. It's not that, well, maybe the stars have, but things are going on. And again, the evidence is showing those systems, those stars that are just right behind us, in the ones that, we can see in front of us, because it's coming to us, we're actually heading towards it, whatever your perspective want to be. What is up and down in space? It depends on your orientation, right? But it's coming here, and every one of the stars that have been hit by this galactic sheet, they've novaed. So who knows? Hey, Twisted Isby, how you doing? Okay. Melmac, you know exactly the area I'm talking about, right? Right in that Bowling Green area. Yep. As a spelunker, I love that area. You could pull off the road and just start hiking up into that. Got to watch, for the poison ivy and crap and the ticks, but you can actually find there. It is so cavernous. It's amazing. Anyway, well, it's been a far out time. Thank you all. Much love to you. Much peace. Enjoy your strong end of the weekend of the event. Enjoy the time, and I hope you have a good one. I think we're still on due for Sunday with Jeff. I'm not sure, but anyway, hello, Robert. How you doing, my friend? So, hey, it's been far out, and Monday we'll finish this up. The last part. It's really nice how the guy really begins to tie up some things, because what we're going to be finding out, hey, it's there. You don't have to go far to really find it out. I heard, and then I just real quick here, I know I'm going over, but the stories of what the U.S. Armed Forces did in Iraq, in the snatch and grab of certain historical artifacts. I mean, that's a fact. We know that. There was something Saddam found that apparently just said, well, we can't have any more of this. The story is that they activated the shield apparently in Iraq, or someone did, and that activated the one in Romania, which said, oh, what's going on here? Because the last thing they wanted was for anyone else to get a hold of the technology. And you can project out from there. So it's a great mystery, isn't it? Great mystery. I love it. It's like, it's a good Sherlock Holmes book with a Dean Koontz kind of spin. And I'm sure we could probably, if he was still alive, Arthur C. Clarke. You just add the three elements in there and you got this great read. All right, folks, much love to you. Peace to you. Thank you. I'll see you again Monday. We'll have fun with this one. All right. Much love. Bye-bye.